Hello, and welcome to the homestead. So, for the past couple months now, we've been doing a live stream talking about Abraham leading all the way up. My alarm's going off. Leading all the way up to David and his mighty men, and we've been doing that because we want to. I want to learn from David and his mighty men what they did right and wrong, and I wanted to talk about that with you guys. And I wanted to do that in a way that we had context. So I backed all the way up to Abraham, and we've been learning lessons all along the way. And we just did basically the Exodus. There were some stories in Numbers and Deuteronomy we could have hit, but we skipped those, most of those. Someday I'll probably go back and pick all those up. But anyway, now we're on to Joshua, when Joshua is getting ready to cross over into the Promised Land. All the Israelites are getting ready to cross into the Promised Land. So it's the night before, approximately. The Bible's doesn't say exactly, but it's right before they go into the Promised Land. Joshua's off by himself as the leader, having taken over from Moses, and he's probably thinking about the battle and planning things out. Where the battle with Jericho. So they crossed over. We talked about that in the last episode. They're in the area of Jericho. They're getting ready for the first battle. And Joshua's alone, thinking and praying about the upcoming battles and everything. And he runs into someone who has a drawn sword. What's the angel of the Lord? And like we've discussed in other videos, with the two powers in heaven and all that stuff, the angel of the Lord is Jesus. It's a pre-incarnate showing of Jesus. Probably a big theological term for it that I don't know. But it's Jesus showing up in the Old Testament as the angel of the Lord. We've done previous videos on it. I should probably do a video just talking about nothing but the angel of the Lord. Let me write that down. And he calls himself, in this case, the commander of the Lord's army. Now, he's not talking about the commander of the army of the Israelites. He's talking about the commander of the army. Sorry about the plane noise and the neighbor's dogs. But anyway, he's talking about being the commander of the armies of angels. And Joshua meets him and he has a drawn sword. And Joshua gets scared for a second. He's like, "Hey, are you for us or are you for our enemies?" And the commander of the Lord's army says, "Neither. I'm the commander of the Lord's army." That he's not on not on the Israelite side. He's not on the side of the enemies in the land. This chair is really uncomfortable today. What he's on the side of is he's on the side of God. So, I want to back up for a second here to probably about the middle of Exodus. God promises them that when they enter the Promised Land, that He will go before them. That He will send His angel. So He says both that He'll send His angel and that He'll go before them. So that's showing that this angel is also God. There went another yellow jacket. I got a yellow jacket issue I'm trying to deal with. Anyway, he and we see him show up several times in the book of Judges, or Joshua, and we see him throughout part of Judges. Well, eventually in Judges, the people get so bad and so corrupt, and they're no different than the people that God removed from the promised land, that the commander of the Lord's army leaves them. And that's when they that's when they steal the Ark of the Covenant and try to use it to force God to fight their battles for them. We'll get in that story in more details later. But the lesson from Joshua meeting the commander of the Lord's army, and the commander of the Lord's army telling him that he's on God's side, he's not on the side of the Israelites, and he's not on the side of the Canaanites, he's not on the side of any person, he's on God's side, is we should let God fight our battles for us. That doesn't mean we should be wimps and pacifists and not defend ourselves and not defend others around us. We still have to do the action. And that we shouldn't be leading people to Christ. But we shouldn't be out there trying to force people to become Christians. All the time throughout history, where people tried to force others to become Christians, they weren't following the teachings of the Bible at all. And we must learn to follow God. And my earbuds are yelling at me. We must learn to follow God and fight the battles in the way He wants them fought. And so I'm going to do a video about this sometime. But I've been seeing a lot of polls lately. So I used to see a lot of polls that said the younger generations are more conservative than any other generation that's been polled. Now I'm seeing polls that the younger generations are socialist. And they want stuff like they want to replace Congress with a random selection, just the random lottery of people. I've seen people, I've been to Walmart. I don't think, I think Congress is doing a bad job. I don't think that's the right answer. Yeah. Anyway. And then they want to put the UN in charge of the presidency. Basically, and when you look at these polls, they basically are angry with the system we have and want to tear down the system and want to attack the system. Well, they shouldn't be. But what they want to do is tear it down and replace it with socialism. And the reason they used to look more conservative is because these people are socially conservative. They've seen the problems with breaking up of families and all this stuff, and they don't want that. But they blame the broken system of the United States. They blame that on the Constitution. They blame that on capitalism, and then they want to tear that down and replace it with socialism. The problem is we don't have a capitalist system, and we're not following the Constitution. We have this weird hybrid of capitalism or of socialism and fascism, and in which big businesses and the government are in bed with each other and work to benefit each other at the expense of the average person. That's what fascism is. And then we also have all these social programs. So we take wealth from hardworking people and give it to people who aren't working. And it's not an equal distribution like socialism claims to be. We take money from the hardest working people and give it to the least hardworking people. And we can't. We're living in the end of an empire right now. There's 250 years the average empire lives or lasts. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a long form video about this. I'll add to the show notes some links to some of the stuff I'm doing to learn about this for that video I want to do about the end of living through an end of an empire. But anyway, we're living through the end of an empire. We can't stop that as individuals. We can't change the way the countries ran. We can't change the way society works. We can't change the fact that empires only last 250 years. But what we can do is learn the lessons from the Bible and the lessons from history and the lessons of people who have gone before us. And we can create the best lives for ourselves and our families and be a good servant leader and a good example and help other people to have the best life possible as this empire crumbles around us. If we go back to the time when the Empire of Rome fell, you can go Google what year the Roman Empire fell. But if you go and ask the people there, they'll tell you that the empire is worse than it was before, but they'll still identify themselves as Roman, the people living in Rome and around Rome. So empires just don't collapse overnight. And the Roman Empire split into two, and the Western Roman Empire fell, and the Eastern Roman Empire just rebranded itself and changed itself into the Byzantine Empire. And then the Byzantine Empire rebranded, fell apart, changed. You clear up to World War II, you had the leader of the German Confederation of small city states. That emperor of all the small German city-states called himself the Tsar, or called himself Kaiser, as in the more correct, less anglicized version of how you pronounce Caesar. He was still calling himself the Emperor of Rome, basically. And up until the same, a little few years after, around the same time, really, you had the Tsar in Russia, who was still claiming that he had lineage going back to Caesar. So empires don't just fall apart overnight. That's not what I mean when I say we're living in a collapse of an empire. Things are just changing in a radical way, and that, like, my great-grandparents and my grandparents won't recognize the country that my grandchildren will be growing up in. And we have to prepare our families for that. Even if we're not going to be around for all that, we got to leave a legacy. And not just our families, but everybody we care about, and our church, and those around us that we're supposed to be the servant leaders of. All right. That was really long to talk about point one. Sorry about that, but it needed to be discussed, I think. All right. So, why did God choose to kick the people out of the promised land and give it to the Israelites? Well, again, if we back up to Exodus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, God all over and over again tells them that these are the rules. If you follow these rules in the land, that I will bless you. If you don't follow these rules, I will kick you out of the land. And we see that basically throughout the entire history of Israel, and the tribe of Judah after they split. But throughout the time of Israel, they keep worshiping false gods and worshiping God wrong and doing all these horrible, awful things that we're going to get to in a minute. And as they do, God quits protecting them and allows other nations to come in and conquer them. And eventually, the 12 northern tribes are hauled off entirely and basically forcefully intermingled with other nations and other peoples, and they're gone. They're just mixed in, and they lost their tribal identities. And then we see the southern two tribes and some of the tribe of Levi's in there too. They get hauled off to Babylon for a while because of them not following God's commandments and defiling the land. So what were the people doing in the land that defiled them? The Israelites did this, and we're going to talk a little bit about it quite a bit in Judges. And later, the Israelites are going to do this. But what were the people that were in the land at the time of Exodus, or the time of the conquest, doing? Well, first off, they were doing what are called Nephilim rituals. So you have lots of different theories on the Nephilim. We're not going to go into all the details and everything of all the different theories. But what was happening is, we know this from history as well as what the Bible says, or at least heavily implies. But we know historically this was happening, that kings would go to the temple as part of their yearly cycles and sacrifices and stuff. And they would have sex with the temple prostitutes that worked there. And before they would have sex, they would actually ask a demon to, one of the false god of that temple, to possess the king. Or if it was a temple to a goddess, like to Asherah, they would ask Asherah to come possess the woman. And then when they would have sex, the baby that would result in that would become king, but he would be considered one-third God because of this. And so the purpose of marriage, sex, the Bible says sex should be confined to a godly marriage. And the purpose of marriage is, so I'm supposed to be a leader to Sarah. I'm supposed to help her. I'm supposed to sacrifice for her. I'm supposed to provide for her the way Jesus provides for the church. And Sarah is supposed to be loyal and faithful to me and follow me the way the church is supposed to follow God. Now, me and Sarah both don't do that perfectly. No humans do that perfectly. And the church doesn't do that doesn't treat Jesus perfectly the way we should. But the purpose of marriage is to be a type to show the relationship between Jesus and church as the bride of Christ. Now, the problem with these Nephilim rituals is they're inviting demons into, well, first off, they're having sex outside of their marriage, and then they're worshiping demons as part of it. And that's like saying that it's okay to invite demon worshipers to come and celebrate in your church services. Yes, you should invite demon worshipers to come to church with you, but they shouldn't be practicing their demon worshiping at the church. You should be inviting them in order so that they can become saved, not in order to corrupt the church. And what they were doing is they were corrupting the land and corrupting themselves and corrupting their children by doing this. Also, they would sacrifice to Moloch their children. And the reason they would do this was in order to give up the greatest thing they had. So your firstborn child is going to inherit most of your stuff, but your firstborn child's job is to take care of you when you get old. Well, if you wanted to make sure you have more children, so you have more people to work for you, basically, and to be prosperous in that way. Looks like I got stung or bit by something. Anyway, to be prosperous that way, a lot of times they would give up offer their firstborn child to Moloch. So they'd sacrifice their kid to the god of prosperity, basically. And unfortunately, we do the same thing in the United States. And even after Roe versus Wade has been overturned, there's more abortions than there ever has been. And Planned Parenthoods are closing everywhere, and that's something to be celebrated. But the problem is that people or women, especially young women, are now just getting the abortion pill through the internet and having an abortion at home, and they're not even going to Planned Parenthood, which is even more dangerous for them. And the reason most women, the reason they say they have an abortion is because they can't take care of the kid, and that it'll be a burden on them, and they can't bear that burden. So they're sacrificing their kid in order to be more prosperous later. And that's no different than the Canaanites sacrificing to Moloch. Oh. Oh, hold on. I hit the wrong button. Sorry there. I was trying to turn comments on. I don't know if they're on or not. Anyway. So all this demon worshiping was going on. That's why they went into why God wanted the land cleansed and wanted the land filled with people that would worship him to be an example to other tribes outside of that land. So God doesn't just send the people of Israel in to slaughter everybody in the promised land. So first off, you got to realize that these are nomadic peoples. That even though there's some people that live in the cities, the cities are built around strategic locations and around worship centers. All cities have a temple at this point in time. And what they're doing but the vast majority of people live outside the city in villages and stuff like that. Are a great many of the people. And all the people in the Middle East have a history of moving when times get tough. We see Abraham moving around all the time for different plagues or different famines. We see other people in the Bible moving around because of famine. It's just famines were common to that area. So what God does is the first thing he does is he quits protecting the people of the land because they've defiled it so bad, because they're so against God. He quits protecting them from the fallen nature. And what happens is they get hornets that are like swarms of hornets attacking people and showing up everywhere. There's plagues and famine and all this stuff. And the vast majority of people don't die. They just pack up and leave. And the Bible mentions that a lot of them went north. And there's some theory and conjecture of what happened to them after they went north. That's outside the scope of this video. It's interesting. I don't know if it's true or not, but it is interesting. And the hornet thing. We've had a terrible time with wasps this year. I need to spend more time praying and leading my family in prayer. Maybe God's trying to tell us something with all the wasps and hornets and yellow jackets we're having to deal with. Like I just tried to kill some yellow jackets this morning. Poured soapy water down their hole and put a garden hose in it for 2 hours and didn't kill them. I think I got a bee's nest over there that's in a problem area. I haven't seen it, but I've seen a lot of bees in that area, so I don't mind wasps and bees and stuff like that around, but I don't want them, like, I had some hornet or some wasp of some sort set up shop. They were living in the mirror of my Tahoe, so every time I get in and out of the truck, they try to sting me. And since the air conditioner doesn't work in the truck, you have to roll the windows down every time you have to stop. They come out and try to swarm you. Well, they come out because they're mad. And then we had some wasps living around the front door. We had some wasps try to build a nest in the mailbox. And then on the north side of the house, a few months ago, we noticed a hole in the ground. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I wonder what kind of critter. Apparently, they're yellow jackets. And that's what I just said I tried to kill with the soapy water and the garden hose. We can't walk around the north side of our house. They just want to attack us if we get anywhere near there. Which means that cuts off one avenue around our yard pretty significantly. So the lesson that I wrote down for the cleansing of the land is we need to take evil seriously and lead our families and those around us to fight evil through prayer and through bringing people to God. That might be a bald eagle. That looks, yep, there's a bald eagle. No way I can turn the camera around to film it. That's kind of cool. Anyway, we need to be bringing people to God and fighting evil. Remember, we don't fight evil people necessarily. We should be fighting the evil spirits and trying to bring people to Christ. What the evil spirits want, what Satan wants, is to drag people to hell with him. So we shouldn't be trying to reject those people that are doing wrong. That's actually helping Satan do what he wants. We should be trying to bring all people to Christ. And we should be leading our families we should set Christ as our example and lead our families that direction. We've been trying every day at dinner to spend more time with this family time discussing stuff. And we've been going through Joel Riles. He does like Canine Academy, something like that. We've been going through his dog training stuff. So when we get a dog, we're all on the same page. But we're also going to be doing Bible studies that way and other edifying, uplifting things as a family in the evenings together. All right. And we got to remember that God drove the people out, and he drove the people out in his timing when he wanted to. And when they were to the point where they were refusing to be redeemed. But God didn't kill everybody in the promised land. So first off, you have, since we mentioned Jericho at the beginning of this, Jericho, you have the spies that go and scout out the area. They end up staying with Rahab the prostitute, who hides them. And because she helped hide them and she wanted to be with God, she wanted to repent from her lifestyle and start following God, that she was spared and her family was spared. There's other tribes and other people that get spared along the way, just like there was some of the Israelite people that got left behind in Egypt because they didn't choose to follow God there. And there's some people that were in Egypt, Egyptians and other slaves, that decided to participate in the Passover and come out of the tribe of Israel, or come out and join the tribe of Israel. So God doesn't, when the Bible says all that these evil tribes were wiped out, it doesn't mean that every single person in those tribes were killed. What it means is that tribe no longer exists because some of that tribe joined the Israelites. Now you got to remember, they don't understand genetics and all this stuff. You have people nowadays, they're like, oh, I'm German. Like, you're not German, you're an American. Well, my family's German. Like, your family hasn't been in Germany for 200 years. 100 years, whatever. You're not German anymore. You're an American. That's your identity. I was talking to a woman I worked with, and she said that she was Mexican. And I'm like, you're not Mexican. You're an American. You speak English better than you speak Spanish. You've lived in America your whole life. Your parents are even from America. Were born in America. Like, you're an American. You just have this ancestry of being from Mexico, your family being from Mexico. But you're an American. You live an entirely American lifestyle. And that's what happened here is some of the people, yes, did fight against the Israelites and were killed. But a lot, I don't know how many, the Bible doesn't say for sure, but a lot are brought into the tribe of Israel. I had to touch the phone there, timed out and was turning black. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if you can still hear me. I don't see the little volume doodad thing. Huh. I think it's still working. Anyway. And there was some whole tribes, some of the tribes that Canaanite tribes, some of those whole tribes became part of Israel. I've heard, I haven't checked this out. Haven't spent a lot of time studying it, but I heard that a lot of the people of the tribe of Dan were of Canaanite descent, and they didn't stay. So Dan was on the very outskirts of the Israel, and they were affected by that culture of the remaining Canaanites on the outskirts significantly, and that's the problems with Dan. Like I said, I've never researched that. I've just heard that. I don't know how true that is. It's something I should look into sometime. There's basically an unlimited stuff about the Bible I don't know. And the more I study, the more I learn I don't know. The more things I find that I don't know and don't understand and need to learn more about. So, in the book of Joshua, Israel never takes all of the promised land. And they don't. So, part of the land is given to Moab, Ammon, and Edom, which are other tribes that are descendant from Abraham. And remember the promises to Abraham that his children will inherit the promised land. So these people already inherited their chunk. Then Israel inherits a lot of it, but because of their disobedience, they don't conquer it all. And the conquest really continues to go on and off, all through Judges and into the book of Kings, when David finally takes Israel. And that's pretty much the end of the conquest. And they still don't have all the land. Now, some people will say that's because having all the land will happen in the future when Jesus comes and rules on earth as an earthly king with his capital in Jerusalem. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just how some people believe. What I tend to believe is that back in Exodus, God tells them that they will conquer the land as long as they follow him. And when it says the conquest ended, it's because they quit following him, so they weren't going to get any more land. I think that's more likely the case because they did not do a very good job following him, even in Joshua. And as soon as Joshua dies, it kind of goes off the rails entirely. They come back, they flip-flop back and forth throughout the generations. We have to remember that God's promises unfold over a long period of time, that it took generations for them to get all the land that they had. If you want to start with Moab, Ammon, and Edom, and go to when David did the conquest, David captured land, that's a long time, lots of generations in there. And as fathers and as leaders, servant leaders of different communities, we have to teach people and lead them in that direction. And like, we have to lead our children in such a way that they will raise our grandchildren to follow God and reap the promises. God says all the time that he'll protect us and help us if we follow him. Is a lot of times it's said, I put before you the law, choose the blessings or cursings, choose life or choose death, stuff like that. And we got to not just choose life, but lead our future generations to do the same. There's another bird flying around like crazy. It wasn't a bald eagle this time, though. Anyway, that's all we got for this week. If you like this kind of discussion about what we can learn from the different people of the Bible, if you like homesteading and preparedness and stuff like that, you do the algorithm thing, like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. You can check out I have next few videos. You can go ahead and hit wait. Our next few live streams, you can hit wait on those, so it'll notify you when I do them next Wednesday at 3. Yeah, 3. Or most importantly, you can go check out in the description. I put the link down there already. Telegram, my Telegram channel. It's t.me/prepare to prosper. Search Telegram for prepare to prosper, so we can discuss this and have a good conversation back and forth. I don't want to be like telling people what they should and shouldn't do. I want to lead through example and help people and have a discussion on homesteading, on preparedness, on living out our mission. I want to learn from other people, and the best way I know to do that is a discussion on Telegram. And you can go comment and talk about anything homesteading, preparedness, or mission or oriented on there. And that's all we have for today. I hope you got something out of it. I got a little bit out of it. Some stuff I need to be doing better in my life to be a better husband and father and better live out my mission that God has given me. So join me again next week. And remember, we prepare today so we can prosper tomorrow. How do I end this thing?